So hi everyone, welcome to our fourth annual business summit. Thank you, Kevin, for doing all the icebreakers and introductions. We're definitely going to go more deeper into hybrid workplace. We have John here from Cisco, who's going to be our guest speaker here. And so I'll go through an overview of the event, so you all know what's happening. So the first part is going to be let me share the purpose first. The purpose of this event really is for all of you to really have an opportunity to learn, network, and engage with alumni, professionals in the field of business, and also resources that's related to business. So, and there's going to be a link at the bottom to fill out, and 5 participants will randomly win a $20 Amazon gift card provided by California Society of Certified Public Accountants. So yeah, we're going to do the intro in a bit. After we do the intro, and our special guest, our college president and dean of counseling, will be here in a bit. We're going to have, as I mentioned earlier, John Lagonigro over in Cisco that will talk about their findings for hybrid and remote work. After that, we'll put a lot of breaks here because we understand the importance of breaks for Zoom fatigue. You could do your push-ups during your break if you want to. We're going to have Professor Erdkamp do the Coastline alumni panel. So for all the current students, that's going to be helpful for you to get a lot of tips from students that have gone through similar courses that you're going through. Again, we'll put breaks here. After that, Professor Thomas will be facilitating a panel of hiring managers. That way, the purpose of this, so you're all aware of what employers are looking for from different industries. So take notes. And this will be recorded and this will be uploaded. So we will send this to you once it's up. Because we understand that not everyone could be here the whole time. Again, we'll put a break again. And by the end of it, we're going to have 25 minutes of, we're going to have a breakout. We'll put these different resources and breakouts, and you all are free to join which room you want to go to, and we'll go more into depth into all the different resources. Okay. And again, the agenda, I'm going to put the link of this webpage on the chat for those that really like to know where we are and click around. You'll notice on the event page that there are links to folks' LinkedIn as well. So if there's someone here that you want to follow up with and want to message them about anything, their LinkedIn is also there as well. Okay, so I put that on the chat. Okay. And so, yeah, so this part, we're going to introduce the event organizers, and we're going to go from left to right. So let's see who's first. Oh.
Hi, I'm Erin Thomas. I'm the business department chair. I'm a faculty member here at Coastline College. I'm happy to be here.
All right, I am Kevin Erdkamp. I'm accounting faculty and department chair. And I really want to thank Paulo for spearheading this. This is the 4th year, and he has just been the main contact and really brought this thing together. So I really want to thank him for all his help this year in putting this on. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Catherine Amukti here. I am responsible for industry and partnership development program manager at Coastline.
Got it. And I'm Paulo Varquez. I work over at our career center. So anything job related, looking for internships. I'm also a counselor here as well. So anything at all in that area, please reach out to any of us. We'll make sure we'll give you to the right person. Okay. And next up is going to be our special guest. So first, we have Dr. Vince Rodriguez, and he is our college president. I'll hand it off to Dr. Rodriguez.
Thank you, Paulo. Welcome to everyone. This is always one of my favorite events every year. I appreciate coming here. I want to welcome you to Coastline and this event. For me, this is always a opportunity to hear from industry experts that are in the industry today, as well as students that were in your seats just last year, the year before, or recently. And it was great to connect with them in prior events, and I'm sure the same thing will happen today. So I hope you take advantage of the resources. I see, as they mentioned earlier, LinkedIn opportunities, so you can connect with us and you'll have some great opportunities. A little more about me. Before I started working at our college 24 years ago, I worked 9 years as a manager in a recreation center, so I was in the business environment, hiring, firing, things of that nature before I then got my bachelor's in information technologies and master's in education. With that, I'm going to step aside and listen to the rest of the introductions and the keynote, and then I'll probably have to leave you in the middle of your session today. Have a great day.
Thanks, Dr. Rodriguez. So next up for our special guest is our Dr. Bruce Keeler. He's our Dean of Counseling and also my boss. So make me look good, everyone.
Thank you, Paulo. Well, I just wanted to welcome everybody here today. I'm so excited for all of you. I think this is such a tremendous learning opportunity for all of you. All of you should pat yourselves on the back for being here, because I think this experience is really going to put you ahead of the rest of your colleagues who may not be here. The lineup for today, we have excellent speakers. As Dr. Rodriguez said, learning from people who not so long ago were in your shoes is always such valuable information. The resources and connections that you will make today will significantly shape your future. And like Dr. Rodriguez, I want to emphasize that the resources that you learn today really encourage you to take advantage of them. We know that Paulo is a tremendous resource. We have a tremendous career and transfer center. Helen Ward is also here today. And of course, our counselors are always here and available to assist you. Sometimes students forget what a tremendous resource their faculty are. So I encourage you to really engage with your faculty along your career here at Coastline and really take advantage of the knowledge that your faculty have, and then all the connections that you'll make today. So I'm really so excited for you. This is really going to be a tremendous event. And again, I welcome all of you. Thank you.
Dr. Keeler. I also noticed we have Dr. Natalie Schoenfeld. Sorry for, you probably get anxiety, like, why'd you say my name? But I'm wondering if you could say hi to the group.
And thanks so much. Just welcome to everyone. My name is Natalie Schoenfeld. I serve as the Dean of Students here at Coastline, and I'm just thrilled to be here with you and learn alongside you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here today. For those of you who have not come to Garden Grove, you need to come to this group. It's amazing. With the owl, it's a little weird. I can talk and it'll follow me everywhere I go. Okay. So anyway, I'm just so thrilled to be able to introduce today's main speaker, John Lagonigro from Cisco. Cisco is a leading provider in networking, security, data center, collaboration tools with over 79,000 employees operating over 80 countries. Cisco not only provides the tools needed for a remote work environment, but has relied on hybrid and remote work for many years, making remote work cool before it was cool because of the pandemic. John's group has been researching the effective hybrid work environment for their employees, so he's very well versed in this topic. John has been with Cisco Systems for over 15 years. He is currently the Director of People Research and Intelligence within the Human Resource Department. For the last 6 years, John has been doing research with a team of data scientists and researchers, seeking to understand how leaders can create a great employee experience on their teams and what makes employees thrive at Cisco. His team has informed executive leadership on their findings and will share their research publicly as well through articles, books, and interviews. So John, thank you again for being here, sharing both your time and your insight.
Sure, my pleasure. Thank you so much. It's great to be here with you all. Yeah, I think it's a great example of what hybrid work looks like, as you stated. You have people in a room together that are meeting in person while they're attending with all of us wherever we are in the world. And that's going to continue, right? Some of this was happening before, but we at Cisco truly believe that all work will be hybrid in the future at Cisco and around the world as well. And so you always have to make those accommodations and figure out how do we work best. I thought during the icebreaker, there's some really good comments about what's at the heart of the issue here. Flexibility, I think I'm going to say it a lot today because that's really what it's about, right? Flexibility to take care of what's happening both at work and at home. Flexibility to work where you feel productive, where you feel possibly safe, where you feel like you can collaborate with others. I heard that as well. Lack of connection might be one of the concerns people have when we are working remote. Like, yeah, working from home sounds great, but human connection is important. So that'll come into play as well. So let me talk a little bit as we get into this. Just want to check. Can I share some slides that I have, or I think it says it's disabled. Oh, here we go. Good. Thank you. Cool. So I also want to just acknowledge as well, like, I feel like I've been having a hybrid week this week. So I'm on my second business trip since the pandemic started. The first one was only a month or a half ago. So I've only started, traveling again, where I used to travel quite frequently. So I'm home based in Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm in Denver this week for a leadership meeting where we had 120 people meeting in person, which was a bit scary at first. And then I came over here to the Denver office, just a 20-minute walk from where we were having our meeting site, to pop in here to an office I've never been in before. Got connected, did a little bit of work, and now I'm here, virtually meeting with you all. I think that's what a little bit of what the hybrid work future looks like, right? That there's going to be variation around where you're getting your work done, and obviously who you're meeting with, how you're meeting with them. We'll talk more about that. So to jump in a little bit, as we talked about, I'll share a little bit about myself and my journey, what I'm doing today and how I got here. Then I want to talk about what we're seeing as changes in the workplace, what the themes are, what we're paying attention to, and I think what you're probably reading about and hearing about out in the industry. I want to talk specifically about Cisco's response to the pandemic. I think that's what set us up for how we continue to carry forward. Hybrid work isn't just based on the pandemic, but I think it made us all open our eyes a little bit more and consider, what does future of work look like? And then I'll talk a little bit about what we've learned at Cisco and how we're going to carry forward as we go into this hybrid world. So for me, I did my undergrad at the Rochester Institute of Technology, got my bachelor's degree in information technology way back in 2000. That brought me to Cisco eventually, where, as Catherine mentioned, I've been here for 15 years. I started in sales training development, which was my first career at Cisco. So building online training courses, doing multimedia development, which I really loved. During my time at Cisco, I went back to school and got my MBA. And as I moved into a leadership role of managing our training team, and then realized I was ready for a career change. And I kept hearing about data science and big data and how, it was a top 10 or top 5 growth job for the future. And they were hiring, people out of high school that knew anything about it. It was hard to find talent. And I realized I just wanted to learn more about it. And as I did, I realized it really played to my strengths. So I enrolled in the Coursera Data Science Specialization, which was a 9-month program that was kind of, self-study online, and started applying that in the workforce. And that brought me to my current role, which I've been having an absolute ball in, which is doing research and intelligence. So figuring out how do we have our best employees at the company, what drives great productivity and performance for our employees, what drives great experiences, how do we create the right team environments where people can thrive, realizing that most of that's done through the team leader. And so supporting our leaders with what they need to know about how to manage their teams effectively, to drive innovation, to drive productivity, and do all the things that they need to do. Along the way, I've hired a lot of people smarter than I am in that space, as I've continued to learn from them. And so I have a pretty large team today that does everything from looking at our data to doing new research, whether it's surveys or interviews or things like that. We continue to build our base foundational knowledge around what makes great employees and what makes a great company. And along the way, we've also contributed to this book, 9 Lies About Work, in 2019. That was one of our long-term goals, was to find out when we know things are working at Cisco, how do we share it with the world so we can help everyone get better and make use of what's making us effective. So in this book, it's based on the research we've done around, as I talked about, how do we have employees that are doing what they love every day so that they're passionate and they're staying up, conquering problems and pushing forward and innovating. And a lot of it is breaking the paradigms of the past and things that we're doing in the workplace, sometimes based on things that were being done, a long time ago, 50, 100 years ago. And we need to rethink that as we move into the new future. And so today, I currently am the director of People Analytics and Research, is what we call it. And I'll be sharing some of what we found within our team here with you all. So in terms of the changes we've seen in the workplace, and we talked about some of these, flexibility is certainly the one that most people that's the value they see in having, let's say, hybrid or remote work. Those are interchangeable. I think some of those are still undefined. And so for us, hybrid doesn't just mean I can work at home sometimes and I can go to the office sometimes. We really spent some time thinking about, everyone's talking about hybrid, but what does that mean? I know at my company, we used to be able to work from home on a regular basis. We had people that never came to the office that worked fully remote because they either didn't live near an office, or some people that lived near an office and just had circumstance or situation where they didn't feel the need to go to the office. And then we had people that would go to the office regularly. We had some that had to go to the office because maybe they had to get to equipment or labs that, they don't have that set up at home, so they need to be able to go to it. Then we had some that would flex and say, yeah, there's some days where I feel like going to the office and some days where I won't. So what's different about hybrid work? And I think that it's really about empowering people to have choice in the way that they do their work. And that doesn't just mean location. That could be the location, that could be the schedule, that could be the types of work that they're doing, that could be how they interact with other people. So flexibility is king, and I know I've said that before. A lot of this is about purpose. And so this is one that has two facets. One is people want to work for a company that gives them purpose. And we know that was one thing people were questioning as they went through the pandemic and thought about what the future holds and where they wanted to go with their careers and what they were spending their time in their lives doing. And this has led to what we know now, or what is being called the Great Resignation. We might reterm it the Great Reshuffling, because people aren't necessarily just like leaving the workforce. Some are saying, I just want to do something different. I either realize I'm not passionate about what we're doing here, or I have new passions that I've discovered during the pandemic or the hybrid model, or they're just really questioning, what I have limited time and I have ways that I want to do things, and is my company, the place I'm working currently, meeting those needs? So purpose is about purpose for doing what the company is set out to do, or how they want to be seen in the world, and the things that they're doing outside of just selling products and services, around giving back, corporate social responsibility, providing volunteering and financial support and things like that. But purpose is also purpose around collaboration, which I know someone mentioned in the icebreaker as well. If you do want to, let's say, work with other people, that might mean, it doesn't mean you have to go to the office all day, because maybe 5 of those hours you're in the office, you might just be sitting in front of your computer, which you could readily do at home. But it's really about that. I want to run into other people. I want to see what they're up to. I want to hear what other departments are working on. And I do see value in that. I know when I used to go to the office, there was people that I was connecting with that I didn't do a great job of connecting with as we were all working remotely. And I think that there is information sharing, which is one of the values, I believe, that the organizations and the leaders that are, let's say, demanding and maybe even requesting, maybe forcefully, that their employees return to the office. I think they think it's about that. It may be about making sure that people have the connections and the collaboration, and that leads to innovation and new ideas and speed and productivity. But it may also, on the other hand, on the negative side, might be because they think if they are not seeing their employees and they can't see them, that they don't think they're getting the work done. And I think that's probably old school thinking. And we need to really understand what is the value of having people either in an office or in proximity to each other. One of the things we know drives navigating through the hybrid world, and was important before and will be even as, if not more important in the future, is what we call attention from a team leader. So this idea that no matter what the work is, or the environment, or the work situation, or the logistics, team leaders need to know each of their team members intimately. So at Cisco, we ask that leaders and expect leaders to talk to their team members, check in every week. What are you doing? What did you love doing last week? What did you loathe doing last week? How can I help you? That's what a leader's role is. So it's not to sit there again and say, make sure you're doing all your work. It's how do I help you as a leader? How do I help you grow? How do I help you get to your goals? And that can only be done through conversation, right? Leaders that meet with their team once a month, sometimes less than that, say they know what they're doing. They're good on their own. Or we have a team meeting, once every 2 weeks. That's good. I see my team there. It really takes more than that. It takes continual effort. Things change so quickly, and things change for the employee. So again, if a leader knows what drives their employee, they can help balance the workforce against how the employee can most benefit. So creating that work environment where employees thrive, it's going to take leaders that understand their employees and realize everyone's unique. So what works for one team member may not work for another. So if I say everyone has to come to an office this week, or we're going to have a team meeting, everyone needs to be there, you may have people where that's not going to work for them. Either they have prior engagements, they have family situation, they have other work engagements. So that attention is super important. It's something we drive really hard here at Cisco. And I think there's many other companies that aren't yet on that path. And it's something we continue to innovate in. Work-life integration. This used to be called work-life balance. I think we realize that's not really a thing anymore. The idea of, I'm just going to set up a work schedule and then work that, and then have a home schedule, and everything is in balance. It really has become more of an idea of integration, which means it may look different for everyone. And so there may be times when you swing the pendulum one way or another. but that it's each person making sure that they are comfortable and empowered, that they are getting what they need from both, let's say, at work and at home, and those things work together. And so that's part of the initial thinking in the book, that 9 Lies About Work, and the new book, Love and Work by Marcus Buckingham, which is pretty much what we built our attention and strengths on. He's the strengths guru, and the idea that you need to love the work that you're doing, and it needs to integrate with what you do at home, and those things, when they're in conjunction and they work together, that's when we have people that truly are engaged across the spectrum and really can show up both at work and in their personal lives at their best, and they're going to feel the best about both worlds. I think we already talked about this one. I mean, the idea being we have remote work, which is when you're not at an office or connected to your company's infrastructure. There's the virtual, where you're doing it using technology, like the very innovative technology I saw you using there in your innovation zone. There's great advancements, and Cisco's certainly trying to drive some of those on making sure that we can stay connected and work from anywhere that we are in the world, which has its pros, which is we can do work anywhere, and the cons, which is you can do your work anywhere. And I heard someone say it's very hard to unplug in the icebreaker again. I heard someone say it's hard to unplug when you're working from home, right? Like that idea of that work-life integration may be like, well, when I live where I work, I never stop working. So you do need to set your own boundaries. And I didn't mean that work-life integration didn't mean that we're each responsible and have to protect our own boundaries. I've always said, even before hybrid work, in my time as a leader, I've always told my team, this company will consume you if you let them. You have to set your own boundaries, and we all have to be responsible for that. And then, of course, there's on-site work and where that plays in. Again, technology is part of that as well. And all of this really comes down to, for an individual, this kind of ties back to our engagement model, where we know that people are at their best, meaning workers and employees are at their best when they feel fulfilled on 3 different levels. One is the company level. So, you want to, and you should aim to work at a company where you believe in what the mission of the company is, and that could be whatever the company is doing, and see how that impacts the world in a positive way. You also need to be confident about the company's future. And if you are loving what the company does and you feel like it's going to be doing it for a while, with that confidence comes, you feel connected to the company. You also need a connection with your team environment. So that means that, the employees around you, you have to feel like they have your back, that you can go to them when you need help and they'll be there to help you out. But also that you share values, so you know how work gets done, you agree to what quality looks like, and you have to be supported by your team. And then at the individual level, you also need to be fulfilled individually. So again, that goes back to doing the things you love every day, having opportunities to grow, knowing that you'll be recognized when you do good work. And those things together, when you do them well, you're hitting it on all 3 levels, then that's like the best employee you could be. You're going to be giving it your all to the work. You're going to feel rewarded for it. You're going to keep going, and you're going to grow with the company. So those 3 things are different in the way they happen, right? You could work on a team you don't feel supported on, and the company you think is great, you're not going to be 100%. So you need to find and strive to set up the place where you feel fulfilled in all of those 3 categories. And if you're doing all these things on the left, we feel like, the impacts of the great resignation, the great reshuffling, and the challenges of moving to a hybrid world that we've all seen can be minimized and possibly even turned into an opportunity and advantage. So the way we think about this at Cisco, what we define, and this is available on a public website we have where we talk about a hybrid index, is that hybrid really comes down to these 4 things. We have our people, and we still need people in the world, right? Like the computers aren't yet able to do everything a human can do, and they probably never will. There's things humans do with creating and collaborating, that the computers are starting to dabble in, but they're never going to get to the same level of expertise that people can. There are things that computers do really well, automated menial tasks. We should be delegating to computers, so it gives us more time to do things that humans are great at, which is being creative. So we need to have people in our companies doing the work of making our company successful to have an impact in the world. And so we have to put our people first and realizing what kind of people we need, what we need them doing, and then understanding how do they work together. What is the role of collaboration? What is the role of, creating clarity for the people? How do we organize the people so that they can be effective? Then there's certainly the workspace. So where do we do our work? And again, that may be, your home office, your living room, maybe in your bedroom, and maybe in a coffee shop, maybe in a shared working environment. Like where that's become, more and more popular, where a co-working establishment where you can go and work alongside other people that may not work at your company. It's just a space where you can, maybe if you don't have a space set up in your home, you can go there. Maybe it's a library or business center somewhere. That it's going to be dynamic. It's going to change. And it's going to be different for everybody. So we have to understand what those look like and how do we set those up so our employees can be productive and be successful. Then what are the right policies and guidelines? So we can say, well, everyone just work hybrid and remote, and that doesn't always work because we need to know what the, what are the, let's say, barriers to us. What are the guidelines, and where can we and can't we, do truly what we need to do? So obviously, if you're working in a place where there is a requirement for, let's say, 24-hour help desk, you're going to need to find a way to have people staffing it at all times. Right? If everyone just decided when they were going to work, you could have missed opportunities. So that in some cases, although we may not like the idea of policy guidelines, sometimes you need them in order to have everyone know that they can leave work and feel comfortable about that. Sometimes people need to know, what can I do as opposed to what should I do? And so, we've continued to create existing, create new policies and guidelines and update existing ones so that we can try to address what we covered on the last slide in a way that's flexible to our employees. And then lastly, the technology piece, which obviously plays a huge role. So Cisco not only works with the collaboration technology, but also with networking and connecting in general. And of course, we couldn't be meeting today if we didn't all have somewhat fast internet connections from our homes and reliable internet connections that don't drop in the middle of the call where you stop hearing me or you stop seeing the slides or we lose our presenters or facilitators or some of our audience members. So it's really important that we have technology that supports everyone and realize that technology needs to be in the places that people are working in order to help the people work. So that's really fundamental to all of these. And so we have to continue to think about all four of these as we carry forward, as we continue to think about how we're working now and how we will continue to be working in the future. A brief recap here of Cisco's pandemic response. So, all the way back in, late 2019 is when, we knew something was happening, quite scary in China. And then quickly, between December and January, was already kind of, and then into February that year was already moving outside China. So within just a few months, it was spreading across the world, which was scary. And then at the time, still a very high mortality rate. So very scary, infectious disease moving around the world. My personal story of this, I remember this would have been, probably early March, right before the blue ones there, March 9th, when Cisco took some action. I remember going to the office and there were some, caution already in the area. I think one of the companies down the street from Cisco, where my office was, had 7 people that had just returned from a conference with, I don't even know if we were calling it COVID yet. I think it was still the thing that we didn't know what was happening. But I remember that was happening. I was in the office as one of the few people that were there. I used to go in most days, unless there was some reason why I needed to be home or be doing something else. I remember being there and hearing someone a few rows over cough. And I was like, what am I doing? I remember I was washing my hands like 9 times a day. I kept getting up from my desk to wash my hands. I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I here? This seems like I could be doing this work at home. So I remember sending a note to my team that said, I'm packing up my stuff, I'm going home, and I'm going to be working from home, and I suggest we all do that until such a time that we feel like it's safe to come back. And within the next week, I think within just a few days, Cisco had sent out a message to all of our employees saying that we were doing a limited work from home, which meant really I think it was US and 1 or 2 other countries. And then within a week, literally within the week later, it was global work from home, everybody stay home. And so that is all just to say how quickly all that happened, right? We went from, having some worries to taking action immediately. And so being able to send your entire, at the time, 75,000 employee workforce around the world at home and then keep the work going was certainly a challenge, but I think we came through that almost effortlessly. We did a great job of getting our Cisco technology out to our employees. So the ones that either weren't connected or didn't have the best connections were able to do that. They had, we were shipping out home video units and our collaboration technology, routers, and the things that make everyone be able to connect from home, but also figuring out how people are going to work best from home. So over time, this kind of started to morph into what do we need to keep doing? And so it was setting up people's home work environments where they could be productive. So not just having an internet connection, but, do you feel like you have a comfortable working environment at home? Is it working for you? And what else can we do about it? So we continue to tailor what we were doing for our employees. That, of course, this wasn't just us. I mean, every other company around the world was dealing with these same challenges. I think some had more struggles than others. We also turned it around and said, how can we help our customers, get to this virtual working remotely exclusively environment quickly? And then we also are now helping them get to a hybrid world of bringing people back to the office. So again, we moved quickly to this mandatory work from home process. We're still critical staff that clear to come into the office for required on-site work. That was only very limited. Again, people that needed to be there to be with probably in the labs working on Cisco equipment or running 24-hour contact centers and things like that. One really important thing I think we did during the pandemic was our CEO had weekly meetings with all employees. We used to do them quarterly. We moved them to weekly, and it was just a way to keep everyone informed. So, I mean, we brought in, we have medical doctors on staff through Stanford University. We brought them to those meetings, and so we were hearing from doctors on what are the updates in terms of the guidelines, and eventually the vaccine, the masking policies. Not just about how does that apply to work, but it was how should we be dealing with that in our personal lives. We brought in also a psychologist. We also have one of those on staff. Came to us talk about how do we deal with the stress that this was creating for all of us and our families.
John, sorry to interrupt you. We do have a couple questions, and we are running a little. Can you wrap up in about 30 seconds, and then I would like to ask the students have asked.
Sure. So yeah, we helped our employees navigate through by keeping constant connection with them. We're working through an office reopening plan right now. We're figuring out how do we get flexibility and individual choice for each of our employees, which is the most important thing. We're realizing we'll have to reevaluate our real estate portfolio, probably reduce the amount of offices we have, create the kind of hybrid environments where we can have people touch down and meet with each other with purpose on an ongoing basis. So lastly, everything we've already talked about, what we've learned is that flexibility is the most important thing. So understanding people are going to want to work differently, and we should enable that. We need to keep that close connection between our team leaders and our team members, because that's where we'll avoid any of the isolation people might be finding, but also identifying the upcoming problems we haven't yet found and where those problems will get solved. And lastly, the engagement, well-being, and support were the things our employees and our leaders are struggling with the most. And so we need to continue to understand the whole environment and experience of our employees and leaders and continue to support them.
Okay, this last question is from Rid, and I think I'm going to paraphrase. I think what he's saying is he likes to travel a lot. And so in your opinion, what area of business or finance should he major in because he wants to transfer to a 4-year university?
Cisco is a place where we enable employees to work wherever they are, and we always have. So we have people that have moved during the pandemic. We have people that do travel. We have some, I used to have a team member that was a nomad. Literally, we drive around the country in a motorhome doing work on a laptop, and was a great employee. So I think there's flexibility, right? And I don't think but then I heard of the finance piece. I would say from what I'm anecdotally, I think some of the finance institutions are the ones that are kind of driving people to come back to the office because I think that's historically, they're kind of used to that. And so I know I listened to a debate between, kind of old school, new school, where old school is saying we need to get our employees back in the office. They need to move to New York City, come into, Wall Street, come into the offices and sit in their cubes and do work. And then we had the, forward thinking, kind of technology group saying, I don't care where my employees are. I'm going to hire the best people from around the world. They're going to do great work. We're going to launch great products. There's going to be both. And so I'd say it's going to probably be on you to navigate. How do you, finding a company that, or, program where the flexibility is there. Because I think that's what is driving the Great Resignation is people's the choice of the candidates and the employees. And it's scaring companies right now. If they want to find people that come into the office, they're going to have trouble doing it. So I think you have a little bit of an advantage there because there is still a war on talent. There has been and there will be. I think people are going to have difficulty finding the people they need to fill the jobs. So I think having the ability to find a flexible job in addition to one where it doesn't have the requirements that, doesn't meet the requirements that you have, is going to be on all of us. And I think there should certainly be the opportunity for you to push back and find a company that does the things you do if one of the openings that you're looking at is not one of those companies.
Awesome. Thank you so much for speaking to our students today and all your advice to us. And also regarding the question, I work over at the Career Center, so we need help with career stuff. Let any of our faculty know, you could ask us as well, but definitely take advantage of our resources. Thank you again, John, for this session. And so for this part, I'm gonna hand it off to Kevin, Professor Erdkamp.
And a shout out to Professor and Dr. Aaron Zettner. He was mentioned a little earlier today. He is one of our organizers. I want to thank you. He is attending remotely. So we are practicing what we preach here. We have some of our employees remotely, like Dr. Rodriguez, Dr. Zettner. I think all the doctors are probably, no, Paulo's here. So anyways, thanks for all joining us today, whether you're here remotely or in person. I'm going to go ahead and set up, and I want to introduce the panel. And what I think I would do is I'll introduce the first two, even though we share the students here. But the first student that I want to introduce is Roy Sahachaseri. I think I've practiced it enough. Hopefully that's close enough. Roy, can you introduce yourself real quick?
I can. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah, I just want you to please tell your educational history. Please feel free to add any personal information that you are comfortable with. An example might be went to Coastline, transferred, etc.
Gotcha. Okay. So thank you, first of all, for having me. My name is Roy Sahachaseri. I was a transferring student last semester. So I got a good gut check spending my first semester on a campus in, I don't want to say how long, but it's been over a decade. So I'm studying business analytics, eventually going towards law, criminal law. And yeah, I graduated from Coast District last semester with an AA in economics and business admin and a certificate in economics. So yeah, that's about it. Just making my way through my first semester at Cal State.
All right, thank you. The next one is Jerome Harney. He is also one of my former students and in accounting. So Jerome, can you unmute yourself? Are you here?
Sure. Can you hear me okay? Hi. Yeah, my name is Jerome Harney. I actually took Professor Erdkamp's financial accounting course as a prerequisite for MBA. So my undergrad is in English from UC Irvine back in the 90s. I actually went to Orange Coast first and then transferred to UCI. Worked a number of years in banking. But anyway, after the pandemic, you know, my kids were going to high school from home. My wife's a teacher. She was teaching from home. Sort of got the itch to go back to school. And so with an English degree, didn't have a lot of quantitative skills. So I took statistics and financial accounting at Coastline to get those prereqs done. And that was back in, I guess, fall of 2020. And I'm actually graduating this fall with an MBA. It's an online program through Georgia Southwestern State University. I Googled affordable accredited MBA and that popped up. So
awesome. Thank you. Jenna Brown, would you please tell us your educational history and share any additional personal information that you're comfortable with?
Yes, of course. Thank you for having me. Good evening, everybody. So a little untraditional maybe in how I ended up at Coastline. I attended UC Irvine right out of high school. I lived in a small town and I wanted to go to a big city, which to me was the city of Irvine. And I graduated with criminology and sociology bachelor's degree, looking to go to law school. And when I graduated, I realized law school costs a lot of money. And I ended up kind of taking a path into operations by accident, but I really loved it. All of my roles were very heavy in compliance, project management, general operations. And don't even want to tell you how long ago I started, but in about 2018, after my son was born, I decided to up my skills and I found a certificate at Coastline for project management. And I didn't want to tell you when I started, as I just finished this year, but I did it. So that's what matters. And yeah, very, very applicable, everything I learned. Erin Thomas, I took a lot of her courses, and I think that's been the most applicable to my career. So a lot of value from it, even going to college and then going back for a certificate.
All right, thank you, Jenna. And last but not least, Judy Rivas. Would you please unmute yourself?
Hi, good evening, everyone. So I'm Judy Rivas. Can everyone hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, so I started at Golden West actually in 2014 after I graduated at Marina High School. And I was like dead set on, you know, I'm gonna be a psychologist. I'm gonna help like all the kids who had a rough childhood. And so for some reason, it kind of like, you know, me and psychology, we just didn't click. And so I probably took about a 4-year hiatus from school, and then I fell into a job as a receptionist in supply chain. And oh my God, when I tell you that, like, if there's soulmates for people, like there's soulmates for jobs, supply chain is my soulmate. And so I was like, oh my God, I have to make this a career. I have to make this my job. I have to make this my life. You know, they say if you are so passionate about something, you'll never work a day in your life. And I'm a procurement specialist right now at 7 Leaves. And I really feel like after graduating with my AE in supply chain, it really helped me land that job.
Okay, thank you. And Judy, don't go away. This next question is for you. I'm going to work backwards now. So, Judy, did you know what you wanted to study or focus on academically when you first started college?
Absolutely not. I think that I had an idea, and I think that I went in very like psychology is my end all be all. If I'm not a psychologist, then I'm not going to school. And then I think that when I fell into supply chain, it was kind of like, maybe I shouldn't be so prideful and be more open to different opportunities. And so that really opened the door to supply chain.
Awesome. Thank you. Jenna, you're next. Same question. Did you know what you want to focus on?
Similar to Judy, certainly not. I changed my major several times going through school. I ironically started in a business major and then I switched. So that's a little ironic. I kind of should have stuck with that in hindsight. But I think it's really hard when especially I was 17 when I went to college. So it's kind of hard to be 17 and have an idea of what it is you want to do at that age. But I found, kind of like Judy, like I found what I really loved and what I'm really good at. And it took me a few years, a lot of years, and a lot of, unfortunately, money. But I am happy where I am now, and that's what matters.
Thank you. Jerome, you're next. Same question.
Sure. Yeah. So I guess really I have sort of two educational journeys. So gosh, trying to go back to the Orange Coast days, I didn't do real well in high school. And I moved from Pasadena to Orange County to be on the rowing team at Orange Coast. And I was just there to kind of do that. And I think, I don't know, I always like to read, and English seemed like a fun major, and it seemed like it could transfer to law, going to law school. I think that's probably why I picked it. And then I just started working, and I actually worked in finance for 20 years, and I had to teach myself a lot of the quantitative pieces. And so I think now, fast forwarding to the second educational journey, you know, I did different things related to subprime mortgage world and things like that. So I've had really good jobs, and then I've lost really good jobs. So I wanted the MBA to kind of bridge the gap or fill in the gaps on the quantitative side. And so I just knew I wanted to, you know, do that to retool for a new career. Thought an MBA would be helpful. So I'm glad I did it. I think, you know, just to what I've told my sons, one's at UC Davis now. He's majoring in managerial accounting. I've told him, you need to have a skill, whether it's a trade school or a STEM, you know, science, technology, et cetera, type degree. I think that's what's important. So what I do now, I'm a safety manager for a pipeline construction company. And I also do some accounting. So it's a smaller company. I'm sort of a jack of all trades. So the MBA helps because, you know, I have to be, what's the word, multidimensional or something like that.
Awesome. Thank you. Roy, I will ask you the entire question that is a request from the chat. Did you know what you wanted to study / focus on academically when you first started college?
When I first started college. So I've had a bit of a roller coaster ride through college. I kind of like Jerome there, was not great at high school. I left early. I had enough wherewithal to start college right away with no clue of what I wanted to do. So I spent, I think, my first 4 semesters at the Coast District many years ago, just going through like surfing class and weightlifting and yoga and some business stuff and history of rock and stuff like that. So I had to make a career change. And that prompted me to go back to school. I kind of fell into some trouble, and I blamed it pretty much on lack of education, I guess, lack of experience. I was always very motivated to get into business because I'm driven by money, and it really blinded me when when I figured out at first college wasn't where my brain was at. So this second time around, when I went back into school, I have had a clear picture of where I want to go. Saying that, after I've been to school now for 2 semesters, for 2 years and a semester, now I'm starting to question, okay, do I still want to go in that direction? Just because of the way the classes have panned out and things like that. But the way I see it is, my goal in the end is to get into a second life being in law. And unless I have a determining factor that's going to for sure change my point of view, if I'm on the fence about it, I'm just going to stay on course and keep going with what I'm doing. So I've been like, as you all know, I was here last semester at Coast Community College District and Coastline and everything, and I really leaned on the advisors. I tried to get as much advice as I could in regards to looking forward and trying to determine what decisions I can make best for me, because in the end, it turns out I'm not the best decision maker, although I am getting better. So, but that's one thing I would just say is, even going to the Cal State here, I've been really trying to lean on my advisors and trying to lean on people that can kind of have had that experience to give me the rest of the decision-making directions that I kind of wanted to go in. So did that answer the question?
Yeah, no, I think it did. If it didn't, please put your question in the chat for any of these speakers. But I've always appreciated Roy's transparency. I think in a world of social media, we're always posting about how wonderful we are. And I know, I've had plenty of failures in my life. I've lost jobs. I've been through divorces. And so there's a lot there. And so it's good to see that balance there as well. So next question back to you, Roy, is what is something personally or professionally that you did not learn in college that you wish you did?
What is something personally and or professionally? So this time going back, we've had a lot of group projects. So ironically, I feel like I'm a very personable person and can really engage with my crowd and the people I work with. And as I started coming into these group projects, I'm really finding out that I guess mentality is kind of different. I don't know. At first I was kind of having, I don't want to say a hard time connecting, but I just didn't feel like I was getting the feedback from my peers. So I've learned, I think, how to be able to kind of connect with a little bit of the younger generation, being that mostly everybody in school is a lot younger than me. And I've learned how to engage with them. And actually, I've learned different ways to be able to motivate them as well. So I think for my personal skills, the most is kind of the social networking, which is kind of ironic because I spent most of my time in Zoom. during school. But this last semester really opened my eyes in regards to like just how to interact with others, how to try to lead this younger generation, for lack of a better term. I don't want to call it a younger generation, but just, you know. So yeah, that would probably be what I've learned the most, besides, you know, like organizational skills and things like that, which I heavily need. So
Awesome. Thank you, Roy. Jerome, you're next. Same question. What is something personally or professionally that you did not learn in college that they wish they taught you or that you wish you did?
Yeah, no, it's interesting what Roy is saying. I'd echo that a lot. I mean, I went I went to undergrad a long time ago, not the last century, you guys. That's how long I've been out of school. A different century. But what they don't, relationships and working together are probably it's so important in anything you do. And, you know, I would say I was an introvert when I started going out in the working world, and I really had to force myself, you know, to get in front of people and things like that. And funny enough, my job title at one point was a, you know, relationship manager. So at a certain point I got good at it, but really had to come out of my shell and learn that skill. And the way I think academics were before is more, you're grinding out the grades, you're competing for the grades and wanting to beat everybody out. The interesting thing about online education for me was that wanting to connect, and the technology allows you to actually reach out and, you know, I mean, it does really two things: reach out to people, but also work on your communication skills, you know, and just because you have to be succinct and get your point across and all that good stuff. So yeah, I would think just relationships, and of course, you know, personal finance. I think people always say that, but maybe that's a high school thing. I don't know.
I think you can always learn personal finance, but I'm still learning myself. But thank you. Jenna, how about yourself? What is something personally or professionally that you did not learn in college?
Office politics,
Yes.
understanding how everyone understands that. You don't really learn it. It's something you kind of gain with experience. But every time I go into new position, I always make sure that I understand, like, look at the org chart and understand who everyone is and try and figure out strategic relationships and who key stakeholders are going to be. And like everyone else said, part of that is networking. Part of it is building relationships. You never know whose influence you're going to need. You never know who has whose ear. So people skills are very important, building connections and really understanding the kind of informal network that exists within every organization.
Awesome. Thank you, Jenna. And Judy, yourself, what's something that you wish you had learned in college?
So mine is kind of a two-parter. It's something I've been thinking ever since I got this question. And I think that it really does, like, I don't think that enough people can tell you you have to network, you know, and I mean by, you know, you never know who's going to give you your next job. And then also too, the second part of that is pride, learning to let go of your pride and ask, can you give me my next job? You know, because I think that a lot of people don't want to make connections. For me, for a long time, I didn't want to, you know, ask a friend, you know, if the city's hiring, or ask another friend, you know, if your company is hiring. And it's just like, how many good jobs have I passed up because I'm so prideful, because I don't want to make connections? Or, you know, I could have taken that person's number down, shot them a quick email, they'll think about me, you know, or, you know, get a number down and say, thank you for speaking with me at this small event. It took a small amount of time, but you made an impact, you know, and then kind of sneak in there. Do you have a job for me? But it's really, really important. And I think that it also has to do with letting go of a lot of pride, especially when you're younger and then you think you can do it all by yourself. But really, the world is one big, you know, web, and we're all connected. And so the more connections you can make is only healthy for you and in all your relationships.
Awesome. Thank you. Just to add what Judy's saying, I think, you know, there's the community, which are your fellow students, right? And then there's the network, which are people like these speakers right now, people that you connect with, and you could always make that transition, right, from the community to the network, but it's important to build relationships in both. I'm going to skip to the last question, and if we have enough time, we'll come back to the other one. But how would you advise me to plan for my future? Like, so, you know, if you were yourself, how would you plan, you know, how would you advise yourself to plan for your future, basically? Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
Okay.
So I think my biggest thing that I've learned in like my very short career so far is be an open book. You never know, like if someone says, okay, I can take you in as an admin, and you know, maybe admin is the last thing you want to do, but kind of like me, my story in supply chain started as an admin, and it's kind of like, don't think you're too big or too small for any position, and always have an open mind and open heart to the opportunities you're given.
Awesome, thank you. Jenna, same question. How would you advise me to plan for my future?
Okay, so I really enjoyed, I said it the first question, the business courses I took at Coastline. I learned so much that's applicable in everything I do. At UC Irvine, I didn't even learn the stuff I learned there. So that's even if you're not on a business track or it's required, I'd highly recommend it. Leadership courses, management courses as well, kind of help with those skills to help with those office politics I talked about. I would take advantage of any internships you can. As Judy said, think about if there's an opportunity that maybe doesn't seem like it's perfect for you. A lot of companies recruit internally, or you may get exposure to positions and jobs that you might not have even considered. I'd also recommend trying to talk to people in jobs that you think you want, or maybe you do want. It's often very insightful to get information about the skills they use, what they do or don't like. And it can kind of give you a bigger picture than what you might find online.
Awesome, thank you. Jerome, how about yourself?
So a long time ago, when I was thinking about it, I think, you know, just being generally educated was an okay concept, and school wasn't that expensive relative to today. So, I mean, from a practical standpoint, you have to kind of look at the value proposition, but I would say that you should still do something you love to do, but I wouldn't go in debt trying to figure that out. And I think that's what makes a place like Coastline and you know, community college a good option, is you can kind of explore things. And I would, you know, you should, if you're not a business person, it's just, there's business courses for non-business people. Take a couple of those. You need to be sort of flexible, and like they were saying, you know, be humble, try anything. But I would just, you know, always learn, never stop. You're gonna, throughout your career, it's just a continuous thing. Technology changes, knowledge changes. You just got to have a long view. And I would just say, pick something you love and be disciplined about it. And then, you know, try to find someone that is doing the thing that you want to do, and then ask them questions and develop a plan. But just don't give up. Bad stuff's going to happen. You're going to get smacked in the face. There's people out there that aren't nice. You just have to be, you know, have integrity and keep learning every day.
Right, Roy. Thank you, Jerome. Roy,
Yeah.
how about yourself?
I don't know if I can really say much more than all the panel just said. There's like two parts of me, right? One part is, okay, when you go into college, have a plan. And that way you can get through it as fast as you can and get it done and go like that. But, you know, oftentimes that's not the case. As we all know, most of us have probably been there where we didn't have a plan. If you don't have a plan, then you know, I advocate for everybody to just explore everything you can, you know, find what you love. And I think Jenna had mentioned it. If you love it, it's not going to be a job, right? It won't seem like you're going to work. You want to do what you do, and it just won't be a job. So, I mean, for me, that I think is the best part of just progressing right now, is being able to explore different things, see where you want to be. If you're not exactly sure, try to experience a lot of different things. Gosh, I signed up for the speech and debate team. I had my very first speech and debate tournament this last weekend, and I feel like I got beat up by a bunch of young kids all weekend, and I was terrible, but the experience was awesome, and I want to do it again. So but just stuff like that, take yourself out of your comfort zone. I think confidence, even after school, is key, because if you just realize that we're being given all the tools we need to have a successful future, the rest is just confidence and being able to express yourself with it. So I say lean on all the advisors, lean on the schools, lean on mentors if you have them, and find something you love.
I want to thank this entire panel for just some great insights and input. And if you have any questions, I did want to leave a couple minutes to have the students ask questions. We are going to go into break here at 5, I think it's 5:15. So we do have about 8 minutes left. If you want to move around, think of a question. And it looks like we might have, I want to hold off on my last question until I know that no students have any questions. So is there any questions from the students? Did you see any like earlier? No? Okay. All right.
Maybe John has a question.
John, do you have a question? We're going to put John on the spot here. Since,
Great. Awesome. No, actually, I don't. There is one person on this panel that I needed to talk to, and I'll be talking to him after this.
Awesome.
So,
okay. Awesome. Well, great. We do have 7 minutes left, so I will finish this last question. How did your time at Coastline prepare/impact your current career, activities, or future education? I know there's a lot there. Just pick one. So your career, your activities, or your future education. How did Coastline help or hurt you? Hopefully we helped you. I'll go ahead and start with Roy. Roy, go ahead.
I was going to ask you who that was directed at. So the thing I loved about the Coastline and the whole Coast District, some of you I don't know, but I was student trustee for a while, so I got involved with all 3 campuses, and it was really a very fulfilling experience. If any of you, that's definitely something I'd suggest too, is get involved in the school level like that. But I forgot where I was going with what I was going to say. Kevin, ask me the question again. I'm sorry.
Well, just, did something that we did at Coastline, did it impact any activity that you're doing now, and any of your future education, your career?
Yeah. So the one thing I will say, and I hope this is not negative, is at Coastline, I felt very secure. I was very close to the administration. I was very close to the faculty. I felt like I could walk into your offices anytime, which was super cool. And going to a bigger college now, it's completely opposite. I feel like part of the numbers, and I'm just getting herded through. And so I've kind of disconnected almost a little bit and been able to kind of focus a little more on my school and not so much all the extracurricular stuff sort of thing. So I would say that the mentality of everybody getting an award is kind of almost not great, in that when you move on, you're going to kind of get, like Jerome said, that face slap. You're going to get beat down a couple times. You're going to get ignored, and you're not going to be that big fish anymore, So I would say just prepare for that. But other than that, it's been a cool experience, and we're here for education, networking, as we had mentioned. So I think I'm hitting all those points as well.
Awesome. Thank you. Jerome, how did your time here at Coastline prepare, impact your current career, activities or future education? Just one of those.
Yeah, so I mean, the reason I took the courses was to do prereqs for the MBA, and I've been out of school for a while, so it really helped because give a shout out to you, Professor Erdkamp. Your course was super organized and structured. You knew what to expect, so it helped me retrain my brain and kind of get on a pace for school and having deadlines and doing discussions. And I mean, at first I had no idea what the heck that accounting equation was, and I was like dying, and then all of a sudden it went, oh, I got it. And so it got me, I guess, in shape to continue on through school. And I've done pretty well in the MBA program and had to take a accounting for MBA. And it was, I will say your class, so it was a good experience.
So thank you. Jenna, how about yourself? Anything at Coastline that stands out to you that helped you prepare?
Well, I also have to shout out again to Erin Thomas. Her course was extremely impactful courses. I took multiple with her. Wonderful professor, best I've ever had. And everything I learned I've actually utilized it. Like I use it in my day-to-day. With having the certificate, it actually made me a top candidate for my current job. I was able to actually be brought in at a director level, which is like my first, I've just been a manager before, so that was really great, but it was having the extra skill and the extra certificate made me more attractive than other applicants. But I use the skills I learned in all the courses and the project management every single day. I even taught a course to my teammates on how to do project management themselves. So as far as what you learn, I think you're going to get out as much as you put in. So I know that there's a lot of work. I know there's a lot of time. I know that it can be nice to just think like, oh, I just have to get through this. But I really, really do encourage you. Like, I wish I did this in my undergrad, but I so encourage you to apply it to real life, really ingrain yourself in it and internalize what you learn, because everything you learn, it really will play out in the real world.
Awesome. Thank you. And Judy, any comments on your time here at Coastline and how it impacted your career or activities?
Yeah, I think that if I wouldn't have I think everything worked out in perfect domino effect. And so if I wouldn't have graduated from Coastline, I wouldn't have the job I have now. And then I wouldn't be so happy here. And, I think that my time at Coastline, I tell everyone, when thinking about college, have you thought about going to Coastline? Have you thought about taking in a course at Coastline? For me, it was such a great place. Even though it was 100% online for me, it was the only way I was going to get school done. And, honestly, that's the only way some people can work. And so don't knock it if that's what the path that life's taking you on. And so honestly, the degree, I'm so grateful that I finished with amazing teachers. And if I ever have to come back for some reason, I'm happy to come back.
Awesome. Well, you already have, right? You came back and you spoke just now. So, but I'd love to have you be a guest speaker again. And I'm sure Ms. Thomas here will as well. So thank you again, this great panel. Are you open to sticking around a little bit and just seeing if anybody has any questions in the chat for you for a couple minutes? Roy, I appreciate you putting your email address in there. If anybody wants to ask Roy about Cal State Fullerton, I'm a Titan myself, and things have changed. And I go to that campus as a professor, and I'm intimidated. So I can relate what he's saying there. So thank you all. It's break time. You can either grab a bite to eat, bio break, as I guess they say now these days. You can do some yoga, whatever you feel is going to be helpful here, because we got a next exciting panel here led by Professor Thomas. Thank you so much.
Great. So we'll be back at 5:20. Do your thing. We'll come back.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Oh, hey, real quick, before everybody goes, I do want to do a shout out to Jessica. I see her on the screen here. She is the Associated Student Government Vice President. And Jessica, I'm going to put you on the spot. I always do. I put everybody on the spot. Do you want to do a quick commercial for us real quick on Associated Student Government?
Absolutely. I was not expecting this. But yeah, Coastline Associated Student Government, is really, the student body. And I think it's really beneficial for me. And I'm pretty sure, I think Roy will agree with me that it really helps you kind of develop, your leadership skills. It really helps you learn more about the colleges in general. And for me, I was just really keep wanting to learn more about, Coastline, how the schools work, and how I can kind of really advocate for other students. And Associated Student Government is the place to do that. It's really supportive. And I've been able to really advocate for my own personal passions and create my own resolution and get a lot of support from, administration as well. So I highly recommend anybody who's interested in advocating for something, no matter what it is. You can come to ASG and you can join ASG as an officer, or if you have something that you want us to advocate for, just come to one of our meetings. We have our meetings every Wednesday at 3:00. And just tell us, your concerns, and we can advocate for you.
Thank you, Jessica. Appreciate it. She's always willing to step up and talk about ASG or even accounting, and I always appreciate that. And she's amazing on LinkedIn. She knows how to work LinkedIn as well. So thank you, Jessica.
And Jessica will put the link to ASG on the chat for all of you.
There you go.
So we're starting our next panel discussion, which is our hiring manager panel discussion. And I'm going to ask each of our panelists to introduce themselves. I'm going to ask you to tell us a little bit about your company, because that's another chance for our students to learn about different companies and industries, as well as what you do for them or what you have done for them when you were employed. So I'm going to ask Benji to start.
Sure. I'm Benji Spiro. I work for Walmart. I believe most of you have probably heard about Walmart before, but we are the Fortune 1. We are the largest company in the world. We have about 2.4 million employees and gross $575 billion last year in revenue. So that breaks down to about $11 million per minute. 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. I lead our MBA recruiting practice, which means I hire business school students from across the country in various different teams, including last mile delivery, advertising and marketing, corporate affairs, merchandising, technology, robotics, finance, all these different things. And I've been in the early career space for my entire career. I graduated in 2009 and have been involved ever since. I've met thousands and thousands of students over the years. I literally just got off a plane about an hour and a half ago from Berkeley, California. I was at UC Berkeley for some recruiting events last night and today. And that's a little bit about me and my company.
Thank you. Anne, can you introduce yourself and a little bit about what you do and where you used to work?
Sure. My name is Ann Elkin, and I just ended my 26.5-year career with a company called Qualcomm. A lot of people don't know it, or if they do know it, they know that we used to have a stadium. But if you own a cell phone, our technology is in it. So every cell phone around the world has technology from Qualcomm. It's kind of like the Intel inside, except that it's for more in the cell phone space. We have branched out into areas with regards to automotive and Internet of Things, but our main business source is the chipsets or the semiconductors. And so we manufacture and sell, I don't even know the numbers anymore that we manufacture and sell. It's astronomical. In the role that I played, the last role that I played with Qualcomm is I was the vice president of global HR solutions. So I had a global workforce of about 270 people all around the world. And so the people that worked for me, our job was to support the business in all of the regions and in all of the different businesses that we had. And my team was made up of people who did employee relations, people who did recruiting, people who did any kind of HR that you can think of. They were supporting the business and in taking care of the employees globally. So that just kind of a nutshell. I won't go into my whole career, but that was where I ended my career with Qualcomm.
And so I'll just translate a little bit for our students. When we talk about businesses, we have customer-facing roles where we're working directly with external customers, and then we have many organizations within our companies that help us service internal customers. And so human resources, IT, those kinds of functions, accounting and finance, service internal customers to a business, and they're absolutely still crucial to success of the business. Gary, tell us a little bit about your company and about what you do specifically. You're unmuted. I heard a good quote that it's not a Zoom meeting until somebody says that. We can hear you. We can hear you. You're great.
I'm good. All right. Yeah. All right. So first I'll state the obvious before you figure it out on your own. I'm a New Yorker. You'll hear it in my accent, right? I spent 46 years over there, and my only regret is I should have done it sooner in this beautiful place. So I work for, my company is MSA Safety, and we design and manufacture safety devices. It's a Fortune 500 company. Company is over 100 years old. First product manufactured was a coal miner's helmet. John Ryan, the founder of the company, worked by the guy with a guy by the name of Thomas Edison, who put a light on it. And that's that famous helmet that you see in mining still today. Now what the company does is an assortment of safety devices. They're heavily involved with the fire safety. They manufacture fire helmets, these breathing apparatus. Those are the units that you see firefighters with their oxygen tank in the back. And there's a lot of sophistication in those units, in the face mask, where they're measuring the firefighter's vital signs. If he's standing straight up, he could communicate with other fighters in the area. Infrared heat sinking devices that can measure temperature on the other sides of walls. A lot of technology in that. Also into fall protection. Those are harnesses if you're on ladders or scaffolds or buildings. Also into gas and flame detection, and that's the division that I've worked for. And I've been there for 22 years. Gas and flame detection being protecting oil and gas in the like offshore oil plants, energy facilities. These are robust devices that work like smoke detectors in your home. When you sense smoke, it'll send a signal, which we hear a siren in our homes, but these can go to a control station or a switch or a siren, whatever the customer needs it to do. My position with them is I'm the materials manager, and in that responsibility, I'm in charge of the entire supply chain. Supply chain being an assortment of expertise, including inventory control, production control, warehousing, which would be the stockroom, receiving, shipping, packaging, and logistics and transportation, which is a huge industry in itself, but that's all part of the supply chain. And then purchasing and sourcing. That's what I do.
Thank you. We got a chance to hear from a graduate of our supply chain program earlier, and she said that when she found her supply chain jobs, it was like her true love, that she knew she found the right place for her. And we're appreciative of your being here on the panel to represent sort of supply chain as a function. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about what is going on trend-wise with either your specific industry, the safety industry, or what you see happening in supply chain. So what are the trends that you're seeing right now, Gary?
Well, the trends in my industry is in supply chain, mostly is keeping up with technology. So technology is changing considerable. And in our devices, that they're safety devices, so they have to get approved by safety agencies throughout the world. We sell it globally. It takes us years to develop a product. And once we get it approved, we don't want to make too many changes, but the electronics industry is changing rapidly. Components, electronic components are getting smaller and lighter and faster. But, so what we've designed into our equipment, we want to make sure that we don't make major changes to have to go through those approval cycles, and the customer doesn't want changes. So we'll sell a product for 10 to 20 years, much different than computers or cell phones. So to keep up in our supply chain, we have to, and particularly the supply chain experts, the purchasing, sourcing people, have to make sure that they bring those changes to the engineering groups so that they could design in those latest technologies and give them enough time, which could take years to design in.
Yeah.
So
there was a really good question in the chat. And again, this is an environment where all questions are okay to ask. And so I appreciate the question, because if one person had the question, that means multiple people were asking the same things of themselves. And that is, what is supply chain? And that's a generic term that we use to describe how material moves from where it's created to where it gets put into a product and to where it goes to its end customer. Maybe you are the end customer, maybe another company is the end customer, but it's the logistics of management of that material as it's moving from company to company, how it's moving between the companies. Is it by plane, by train, by boat? And then how you manage inventory at each of those stages so you don't end up with too much inventory. So great question about supply chain. I've been teaching for 13 years, just a quick aside. The last few years is the first time in my teaching career where I've had companies calling me saying, we see that you have a supply chain degree. What can we do to help you get more students into that degree? That's how desperate the industry is for talent. So I'll just put that out there for students who are not quite sure where you want to go. But I'm going to ask the same question of you, Anne. What are some of the trends that you are seeing in your industry? And again, I think you could speak to both Qualcomm as a technology industry, as well as some trends you might be seeing in HR in general.
Sure, absolutely. So obviously especially as COVID hit and into COVID, we had a lot of semiconductor shortages, and we are in the semiconductor business. So we were definitely affected by that. There was issues with silicon, and then also factory issues, et cetera. So it was a worldwide phenomenon. So clearly we were in that, but we're also a semiconductor design company, and we also sell semiconductors to all of the industries that I mentioned. So for a while, that was a big challenge. The other challenge that our industry is starting to face now is, there was things we've talked a lot about, or somebody maybe in the earlier panel, the war for talent, which is a definite challenge for us. I'm sure Benji's in recruiting, so that he's dealing with the same thing any of us that are doing the recruiting. And then there's some new things that are coming up. Some of the comments around quiet quitting and productivity issues. So from an HR perspective, those are some of the things that are most interesting, because the quiet quitting, there's so many different theories on why that is. If you think about COVID and everybody working from home, we had nothing to do but work, right? Like, we were home. I mean, maybe a lot of people might have been educating kids, but we didn't go anywhere. We couldn't go on vacation. We couldn't leave. And we were all sitting at our computers waiting for the next meeting to take place and getting work done. And the world has changed now, right? So we can go places, we can take vacations, we can step away, and so there's a lot more freedom. And there is this war for talent. So at least at the moment, it seems like the employees have a lot more leverage than it has been in the past. So from an HR perspective, this impacts us because we want to keep our employees. We don't want them to quit. We don't want to lose the talent. So what do you have to do? You have to figure out how to make a work-life environment that people are going to want to come to. You have to pay them appropriately. You have to make sure that people feel that they're getting the rewards that are appropriate for the work that they're doing. Because if we don't, they're going to go someplace else. And so all of those things. So from a Qualcomm perspective, but also from an HR perspective, there's a lot of things that are happening that are particularly interesting. I feel like, I've said this, I know there's some questions coming up around COVID, but COVID was this worldwide social experiment that we all got thrown into. And I don't think anybody knew what was going to happen. I still don't think anybody knows what's going to happen from here. So to me, it's just a really interesting discussion around some of those aspects, because all of this involves employees, and that's where HR resides, is really figuring out how to motivate the employees, make sure they're productive, make sure that they're treated fairly, in order to be able to produce for the company. So those are some of the things that I'm seeing, both company-wise and industry-wise.
And I hear you're talking about retention. We're also upgrading our management degree, and we're talking a lot about how do we teach managers to be the kind of manager that people want to continue to work for.
That's
And
great.
I'll just highlight for the students here that when Anne listed the things that companies are doing to maintain their workforce, because it's very costly for a company to replace you. So they have a vested interest in keeping you there. It wasn't until the second or third bullet that she listed salary. So there's a recognition now, I think, in firms that flexibility, acknowledgement, sense of belonging are all things that companies are trying to impart in order to keep their employees. So Benji, the question to you also, so what are the trends that you're seeing? How has COVID impacted what Walmart does? And what can we learn from that?
So COVID obviously had a tremendous impact on the work that Walmart does in multiple different aspects. So we were the largest providers of vaccines in the United States. We were able to help our customers and members of the local community achieve vaccination and be able to provide that. We had mobile buses that you went out to schools, universities, and things like that. In terms of our business, we've seen a tremendous uptick in customers because obviously we're all aware that prices for groceries and in general have skyrocketed. We're actually seeing the average net worth and average compensation of Walmart customers around the $140,000 range, meaning that people who are earning $140,000 is now our median customer base. We're seeing a massive uptick in our grocery business, in our private label specifically. So those are, things like Great Value that you might see in a Walmart store. And we have also seen a tremendous increase in us as an employer. Right now, we're seeing a downturn in consulting, entertainment, banking, and technology in terms of economic stability of those companies and reduction in force, while Walmart is able to take on hiring, and we are known as a very stable company. For example, we grant equity, which is stock in our company, to all of our associates. And I always tell my hires that you might have a bad month with your Walmart stock. You might even have a bad year with your Walmart stock. We always have a good decade with your Walmart stock. And that's something that's like really important because, Walmart's not going anywhere. We go, business is good and business is bad, and economic factors play a big role into consumer spending, but Walmart will always be there. And I think that that's become very attractive to students. I think for a long time, technology dangled extremely lucrative pay compensation packages to new hires, and then they come back and they've overhired and they have to do reductions in forces. We don't do that.
I see a question in the chat, and we should put maybe for a chance to get some bonus points from an instructor. Somebody announced some major layoffs today. Does anyone know who it was? But I'll keep going with you, Benji, to ask. And I'm really curious to hear the answer to this question for Walmart. How does this hybrid world of work impact you as employees? And I know you have a number of different kinds of employees at Walmart. So maybe you could speak to the impact of this hybrid world of work to the various types of employees that you have.
Sure. So we do have 2.4 million employees. So not everyone falls into the same category. So obviously our store-based associates have always been in person. We've seen a tremendous, I focus on our corporate hires, MBA level associates, and we've seen a slow rollback into spending more time in the offices. So we primarily have three main locations where we have associates. So we have Bentonville, Arkansas, which is our headquarters. And that has drastically gone back in person. Collaborative natures have been really helpful for business development. And especially with our merchandising business, which is so critical to face-to-face interactions, we're seeing that. In 2017, we announced that we're building a new, I think it's 350-acre headquarters. So we're still going forward with that. I think we finished our first 2 buildings and we should have it done by 2025. But in terms of our coastal offices, we have an office just
Where will that new one be? Because I know you have your Arkansas facility.
literally just in another part. We're just consolidating our, instead of being spread around the city of Bentonville, we're going to be in one specific spot in Bentonville.
Okay, and I'm just curious if you ever have issues attracting talent to come to that location, because
Sure.
coast cities have such, because, yes.
It's a great question. We do face some challenges towards that. What we're actually seeing is COVID help that in a positive sense. You can buy a really nice house in Bentonville, Arkansas for under $500,000. In fact, I was speaking, I had some of my associates join me from Bentonville, and they were speaking to a student who was considering an opportunity doing consulting in New York. And the associate said to the student that her garage is actually bigger than any apartment that they'll probably get in New York City. And it was an interesting flex, but it left an impression on me, because unfortunately, or fortunately, that's very true. It's not unreasonable to buy a 4,000 square foot house in Bentonville, Arkansas for $500,000, $600,000. We also found that people want more backyard space, more outdoor space, which is hard to get in big cities, especially beginning your career. We are seeing our college hires who come straight out of undergraduate buying houses in year 2 or year 3 of their careers. We also, Bentonville has the 9th best public school system in the United States. So that often resonates with people as well. It's a very nice place to be. People are calling it the new Austin, Texas. It's like really fun, really like good vibes. We have breweries, we have wineries, we have, live music, all sorts of fun things. So it's not your typical like TV iteration of Arkansas.
Right, that helps me a lot. Thank you for sharing those different perspectives. And the same question to you. What are you seeing companies do to prepare for this new hybrid world of work?
So I think one of the biggest things is figuring out how to have this blend of people, which, you're doing it right now, right? So you have some people in person, you have some people that are online, and figuring out how to make sure that everybody gets to participate. Similar to what Benji was saying, during the COVID times, we had a lot of people that we hired that didn't relocate to San Diego. We're based in San Diego, although we have different offices in the Bay Area, Austin, Texas, and other parts, actually all over the world. But when we were hiring people, we were not usually we would be wanting them to relocate to an office. Oftentimes that was San Diego. But during the pandemic, that made no sense, because everybody was doing exactly what we're doing right now. So we were a lot more flexible. And now we're at a point where if we start to say, which Qualcomm has said, they said that they would like more people at the director and above level coming in, I think it's 3 or 4 days a week. And part of the reason that they want that is they feel like the company culture is suffering. And I can tell you that there is a lot of data on the fact that people who joined during the pandemic were less loyal to the companies that they joined than people who had joined prior to the pandemic. And I do feel a lot of that is because you miss out on that community, being able to go down the hall and have lunch with somebody, and a lot of those opportunities to, bump into somebody in the hallway and build some of those relationships were missing. But I do think that it's important that companies, including Qualcomm and a lot of the tech companies, realize the pendulum can't swing all the way the other way. I think there's some issues with that have come up. There definitely was a disparity between what women were experiencing versus men for most of the workforce. And that's global, not just in the US. There were a lot more women who dropped out of the workforce because they maybe had to pick up the childcare. It is a little bit more difficult now. Some of them say, listen, I kind of like being able to have lunch with my children or be home for dinner. And I liked the flexibility of being able to, go to their soccer game and et cetera. And it's not just women, but it definitely had a different impact, a little bit bigger impact on women than men, but definitely the same thing for men. They like the flexibility. So we've got to figure out as a workforce now, how do you balance it? How do you give people that flexibility? How do you make it so that it's okay to leave early to go to a soccer game and not feel like that's the wrong thing to do, or to work from home? And how do we make sure that people still feel included? And I think some of those are the challenges that companies are facing. And I don't have the answer, Aaron, to like what's the magic, what's the magic sauce to make that happen, because I think it's a little bit of everything, and so many companies and so many industries are still trying to figure out what is that hybrid, what's the hybrid workforce look like.
Yeah, what is that new normal? So Gary, what is that new normal looking like for your company, this hybrid world of work? Are you being asked to be in person, or are you still working remotely?
Yeah, so I mean, and all good points. I agree with everything you said. Well, what I'd add to that, and what impacts my company, our industry, is well, first off, when I started working from home, I found it difficult to know what my hours were. When do you quit? I'd get to the point where it's 5, 6 o'clock at night. Typically, I'd be packing my bag and I'd be going home. Once you get in the car, okay, you turn yourself off and you go into your social life, right? Get back into your family life. But if you've been working all day from home, you don't know when to stop. So I found it difficult for that. And I didn't do it very long. But what I'm also finding is I don't know how productive it is overall. I looked out the window when, and I see my neighbors who said that they were working. Meantime, they're riding bikes and they're walking their dogs, and how much were they really working? So is it really productive? But what the most thing that impacts my company is we're a tech company. It takes a while to train people, to get them up to the level that you need them. Well, now that people are working from home, it's easier for them to get positions anywhere because they want to work from home. So you wind up turning your workforce over and you're retraining again. So you lose a lot of your expertise when you do that. And we're doing that over and over. And I find that a challenge.
Yeah, one of the things community colleges would love to do is partner with businesses to help you upskill within, so that you're not having to look outside for talent, but that we're helping you grow internally your talent. Again, one more retention tool, maybe for the toolbox. I just have to say, I'm seeing just this tremendous amount of experience collectively amongst the three of you, and wisdom and really impressive points of view, which could be a little bit intimidating for some of our students. And so I'd like to switch gears a little bit now and ask you to be a little transparent and share maybe a mistake or two that you've made in your career with us. Let's be real, and I'll ask Gary to start. Gary.
Oh, okay. To me.
A mistake maybe that you've made in your career.
Okay. I guess what became difficult for me once I was promoted to be a manager, what I thought is that I had to be the smartest person in the group. I had to know everything. And I had a tremendous amount of responsibility. And supply chain, like the positions I was talking about, between logistics, inventory control, you have to be, purchasing, warehousing, transportation. You can't possibly know and be good at all of that. So, I struggled with that. And, I tried knowing more than I needed to know. What I should have done is be looking out to hire the right people sooner than I did. And once I recognized that I needed to hire people who knew more than I did in each one of these areas and put them in place and just manage them and learned how to manage them, it just helped me, it helped the company. So that I think it was my biggest struggle.
That's a great lesson. And I'll just put it out there that sometimes companies are really good at preparing managers to move into managerial roles, and sometimes that's lacking in internal development at companies. And so you as a student may find yourself thrust into, because of your expertise, a managerial role. So I hope you can take Gary's advice to heart. What about you, Anne?
So I have something a little bit more specific. So at one point in my career, I did a lot of hiring, and I was hiring executives for the company. And there was a gentleman we were trying to hire, and he was super critical, and everybody had decided this was the person that we needed to hire. He had some technical expertise as a vice president that we really needed. And I completely underestimated what it would take to structure an offer for him. And so if you think about, so some of the folks that you're talking in the class have jobs, but some of them will be looking for jobs. And when I say an offer, I'm talking about mostly on the compensation side. And at that level, there are multiple types of compensation. There may be bonuses, there may be relocation that we pay for in addition to the person's salary. And as Benji mentioned, we do stock. And so all of these were pieces of the offer. And I thought that I knew what it was going to take for him to accept our offer. Again, critical hire, we were banking on him, and I underestimated it. And I presented the offer to him, and his words to me were that was an insult. He says clearly, he said, you're not serious about wanting me, and that offer is an insult. And I was like, oh my gosh, I just blew this. And so fortunately, you get approval pretty high up in order to make an offer that big. And so I had already run it all the way up to the CEO at this point, and I had to go back and say, so I need a lot more. We're going to lose this guy. And then I had to tell him that I had made this mistake and I underestimated what it would take, and I was going to go back and get whatever it was going to take to get him. And fortunately, I turned it around, and trust me, I was way more educated with my candidates as to what it was going to take, not just the salary components of it, but like all of the things that were going to be really important to them. And I got to know them and all aspects of them a lot better for the next times I was making an offer, but almost lost him. Thank goodness I didn't. And he's still at the company and makes a huge difference.
Well, that's great. One of the things that you did, though, in your navigating that was you admitted mistakes. And one of the best pieces of advice I ever got in my whole career was just to be honest and it's okay to admit when you make a mistake. And in fact, it's more of a career killer if you try and kind of cover it up or avoid dealing with it. So great advice. Yeah. What about you, Benji? What are some mistakes you've made?
I think some of the things I did earlier in my career was I would go to my manager with issues I was having and frame them more as complaints. This isn't working, and this and that isn't working. And I had a manager a little later on in my career who gave me advice: don't come to me with problems, come to me with former problems and solutions to tackle them. If we don't have the proper solution, that's okay, but don't come like empty-handed and say, this is the issue, this is the complaint, I don't know what to do. Always come and think of a possible scenario. So I definitely learned that the hard way. And really it helped shape me for being a better team member and also being a more strategic thinker.
Great feedback. I haven't been able to follow the chat, but I see it's fairly busy. Are there some questions that you want to raise out of the chat? We'd like to open up the floor. We've got about 5 more minutes with these esteemed guests. If any students have questions, we'd be happy to have them presented to the panel. I don't know. Didn't see that. I'll just ask then the last question. And again, we can pause. If you come up with your question, we're happy to get you off mute and you can ask the question. But Benji, starting with you, what advice do you have for students who are interested in pursuing a degree in business? Maybe you're not quite sure where they want to go with it. Do you have any advice for students?
Yeah, I read the Wall Street Journal. I read Google Finance every single day. I have an understanding of what's going on in pretty much every single industry, very superficially. I'm not an expert in any of the specific fields, but I have a good understanding of where the markets are, where technology is trending, where oil and gas is, where entertainment trends are, and things like that. So I have a good understanding of what's going on. And I think it helps me because I worked in a number of different industries. I started my career in Wall Street, and then I spent time in management consulting, and then I worked at Disney. So I've seen a lot of different industries, and it really helps me to become a subject matter expert in the work that I do, because I go out and myself and my team represent our employer. And in order to get students to want to choose my company as an employer of choice. We have to be well versed in the industry and the trends. So if you're really not sure what direction you want to go in, just read. You'll become more in touch with the world around us, how global macroeconomics and microeconomic factors play into the workforce and things like that. And you'll be able to like speak more about your industry and things like that.
Be more conversant. Any advice from you, Anne?
You know, Benji, you stole mine. I was going to say something like that.
Sorry.
So everything Benji just said, but I'll add on to it. One of the things that I think is really important. So when you're, you know, getting a degree in business, typically when you go into a company, you're going to be more likely to be specialized. I mean, you've talked about supply chain, finance, human resources, and there's a lot of different roles that have that business flavor. What I would say is no matter which role you go into, make sure you understand the other people that you work with. And for me in human resources, one of the strongest partnerships that I ever had in the human resources world was finance. And that is because finance and HR, there's, Aaron, you made the comment earlier that they're kind of behind the scenes supporting the company. And there's a lot of things that happen in my world that inform finance and a lot of things in finance that inform HR. And so figuring out a lot of those different partnerships early on and making sure that you understand what other people's roles are. And like Benji was saying, not that I have to be able to go do their job, but I have to have an understanding of what it is to walk in their shoes. Similar to the way he was talking about all the different industries, I would say, you know, the different roles that people play in business are going to be equally important to understand no matter what role you do.
And you're echoing something that someone on our student panel said as well. When she enters a new organization, she really takes time to understand it, to understand who is in what role. There's the org chart that's written, and then there's the influential org chart that you have to understand. So that's great advice. We did get a question specifically for you, Anne, which is somebody asking about a career in HR. They want to make that their career, and their goal would be to get to a director level. And what kind of advice might you have for someone that's heading in that direction?
So my advice there would be to understand all of the different roles that are in HR. So, you know, there's recruiting, there's people who do compensation, there's people who do benefits, there's people who do employee relations, organizational development, and all of these different HR functional areas have to work together. So first I would make sure that you get some information as to what those different types of roles do. There is a role called a generalist, which is going to be sort of that jack of all trades, but that means you have to have some skill and understanding for all of the functional areas I just mentioned. I started out my career in HR in training and development. But I do know also a lot of people will start out their career in staffing. I moved into staffing, was one of the areas that I moved into. So there are some entry level type roles that people can look at if they want to go into HR. My degree is actually in psychology with an emphasis in industrial and organizational psychology, which back in those days you emphasized in it. Now you can actually major in it and get a master's in it as well. But I also was keen on hiring people who had business degrees for HR roles. So a lot of different, so psychology, sociology, communications, business, all of those can feed into HR. There is one organization called SHRM, which stands for Society of Human Resource Management. And if the HR is an area that people are really interested in, I would say take a look at their website. They are all over the world. And they're the professional association that a lot of HR roles will be presented in. They also offer certification programs. So as you get into HR, if you want to get more certifications in different areas, they have like a testing program that you can, put letters after your name signifying how much experience you have in the different programs that they have. So that would be kind of my recommendations, is figure out where it is that you want to specialize in. And then, SHRM would be one place to go look to see to be able to get a little bit more information about what HR does.
And for those of you who are interested in HR, and I'll just remind everyone on the call that our esteemed guests have allowed us to put their LinkedIn connections on the website. So you can consider connecting with them. You can go see all those letters after Anne's name. And I'm sorry we didn't get to you, Gary, but we're at our end of our time now. I want to thank all of our panelists very much for all of the wisdom you've imparted and what you've shared with us. We really greatly appreciate you being here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck to everybody.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to talk about our break.
Sure. Yeah. So right now will be our 5-minute break. Let me share the screen. So make sure you stretch. That's really important. The next part at 6:05, in about 4 minutes, we're going to have our resources panel. I'm going to break them up in different breakout rooms. So you all are free to go to any of those breakout rooms. And just keep in mind that for the opportunity drawing, again, one more time, I'm going to put the link on the chat. At the bottom of the webpage, there's going to be a big, huge link that says event feedback survey. So hopefully you don't miss that. I'll put that on the chat, the event page on the chat one more time, in case you do have to leave early. But yeah, take a break, 4 minutes. We'll be back.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to introduce the first two. And one of the questions that was on the chat was, how can you be successful in accounting? Two of those ways are going to be listed in these breakout rooms. The first one is the California Society of CPAs. They are a strong supporter of Coastline. They're the ones that have provided us with the $20 gift cards, and there'll be 5 of those for those of you that complete the survey. California Society of CPAs, what they do is they support, basically they support me. I get to attend all of their events for free, or quite a few of them for free, but it's open to students, and that's really what they want to talk to you about. And you do not have to be an accounting major to join their program. In addition to that, they offer scholarships, and they're probably even going to be offering more scholarships exclusively to Coastline. So it'll really behoove you to try to join that room. Also with us is Jorge Marquez, and his LinkedIn contact is there. Jorge and I have been working together since January of 2021 on something called the Accounting Apprenticeship Program, which a lot of my students have already been exposed to. But you can learn more, and essentially you can start learning accounting with after just taking one financial accounting class. And I don't want to ruin his thunder, and I don't want to take up too much time, so I'm going to pass it over to Aaron for the rest.
All right, so we've got several organizations here for you. You heard Anne mention the SHRM, as the Society for Human Resources Management. That's an industry association. And I want to make sure our students understand the value of belonging to those industry associations. It's a way to network across outside of your company. And CSCMP stands for the Council of Supply Chain Management Professionals. So that is another industry organization. We have the local roundtable president here with us tonight. That's Ryan. Thanks for being here. Coastline Business Club, the alum Roy, who spoke earlier, started this club last year, and we're continuing forward with the club. I happen to be the advisor, so I'll be bouncing around between those 2 rooms. Many of you, when you signed up for this event, indicated that you're interested in entrepreneurship. And so we have a visitor from the Small Business Development Center here to speak with you about what they do and how they assist people in starting businesses. And then we have Helen Ward, who is the lead of our transfer center, who works with students to make sure that they're on the right path to transfer to that 4-year university that is their target. So plenty of opportunities. You don't have to just go to one room. Feel free to bounce around. Hopefully by now, as part of being hybrid ready, you know how to move within great breakout rooms. So once those rooms open, you will be able to select a room. If you're in a room, you can select to move into a different room, and you can always come back here to the main room. So rooms are open. You're welcome to move yourself into a room of your interest, and folks will be there to answer your questions.
Cool. And in the main room, you're going to have us in here. So if you have any questions for our professors, we will be in the main room.